Hello, and welcome back to This Month on the Railroad, my monthly train news video series. Today's episode will be a recap of April of 2022, but before we start, I just want to say that today marks 1 year since the first episode of this series, and since these videos continue to do well, I plan to keep making them for as long as I can. Anyways, let's get right into the news. On the last day of March, Amtrak released pictures of the completed interiors of the new Acela II train sets, and a few days later, their manufacturer, Alstom, revealed why these new trains aren't in service yet. When they were originally delivered, Amtrak planned to have the first trains in service by late 2021, yet we're almost halfway through 2022 and still not one of these trains has entered service. Unfortunately, following many issues discovered during testing over the past year, it's become clear that the current Alstom train sets need modifications in order to reliably enter service. Unfortunately, this means that the Acela IIs won't enter service until mid-2023 at the earliest. Regardless, the interiors of these new trains look great, and while we'll have to wait for a while before they enter service, the new Acelas will definitely be some of the best trains in North America when they finally do make their debut. A few days later, on the 6th of April, Orlando Mayor Buddy Dwyer announced the Sunshine Corridor program, which would allow local commuter rail Sunrail to run trains on the future Brightline corridor between Disney World and Orlando International Airport in 2026. Additionally, he noted that he hosted multiple meetings between Brightline and Universal Studios, another local theme park, to potentially connect them to this line as well. While both of these projects are very early on in their planning stages, it's entirely possible that we'll see some Sunrail trains deviate from their current route at Meadow Woods to go to Orlando Airport when Brightline opens that part of their line in the next year. 3 days later, Coaster's former fleet of 5 F40PHM-2Cs were spotted on a freight train heading north from San Diego. This fleet of 5 was recently replaced by newer Siemens Charger locomotives, and since their retirement, they've been sidelined with an uncertain future. As of right now, they're waiting in Anaheim, California for their eventual fate, and while 2 separate California rail museums are interested in acquiring 1 locomotive each, the other 3 will most likely be scrapped as per California state law. They were made inoperable, preventing any railroad from using these polluting locomotives any longer. In the coming months, we'll see what happens to them. On the 13th, Amtrak ALC-42s number 308 and 309 departed the Siemens Mobility Factory in Florin, California, but unlike the past few ALC-42 deliveries, this one will be different, as locomotive number 309 was the first ALC-42 painted in Phase VII paint as opposed to Phase VI. This new paint scheme will serve as Amtrak's paint scheme for most, if not all, new equipment in the coming years. Phase VII is pretty close to Phase VI, except for the fact that it features a darker blue on the nose and swooping blue lines on the side. It's always a big deal when Amtrak debuts a new paint scheme, but this one is especially important, as it's Amtrak's most colorful one yet, setting an upbeat tone for the bright future ahead. The next day, the Surface Transportation Board announced their approval of CSX's purchase of Pan Am Railways, one of the biggest regional freight railroads in the country. The merger is effective exactly 1 month after its approval, meaning that CSX will formally take over on May 14th, but the transaction likely won't be closed until June 1st. Although most of the news covers that CSX will be taking over Pan Am Railways, it's not quite that simple. In order to prevent a rail monopoly, Norfolk Southern and Genesee and Wyoming will also operate parts of the former Pan Am Railways as well. Since this is such a complicated topic, I'll probably make a video explaining this whole ordeal in the coming months. On the 18th, Amtrak announced some scheduling changes, such as a few long-distance routes returning to daily operations on May 23rd, the Maple Leafs returned to Canada on June 27th, a new Berkshire Flyer route between New York City and Pittsfield, Massachusetts on July 8th, and the Ethan Allen Express extension to Burlington, Vermont on July 22nd. Regardless to say, it'll be a big summer for Amtrak in the Northeast. The next day, Canada's Via Rail announced their intentions to electrify parts of their Quebec City to Toronto corridor. While this sounds like a great step forward for the railroad, it's definitely pretty confusing to me that Via Rail wants to electrify a route that's just beginning to receive brand new diesel trains. Perhaps these diesels can be converted to dual mode, but if not, it seems like a waste to only use these new trains for a decade or so before the line will supposedly be electrified. On the same day, another massive Canadian railroad announced that it finalized a contract for a massive expansion. The GO Transit expansion will include new stations, new equipment, trains every 15 minutes or better, and most importantly, electrification. While GO Transit is already one of the most modern commuter rails in North America, electrification will make it a truly amazing system when work is completed in the early 2030s. 2 days later, on the 21st, A poll found that 56% of California voters still support California high-speed rail, which is surprisingly a small increase from the last poll. Luckily, this shows that even though service won't begin for a while, a large number of Californians still support the project. The next day, Union Pacific announced that their plans to begin their Big Boy 4014 tour this summer have been put on hold so that UP can focus on easing supply chain issues. While this is a bummer for rail fans out west, it's good to see that Union Pacific is trying to do the best they can to mitigate supply chain problems at least. Still, the railroad intends to run Big Boy at some point this summer, just most likely later than expected. On the 25th, CSX repainted one of their former C30-7s into an L&N heritage paint scheme at their Huntington, West Virginia shops. Now that this cosmetic restoration is complete, the locomotive will be displayed at the Kentucky Steam Heritage Corporation in Ravenna, Kentucky. The next day, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation announced that they would work to create a rail authority responsible for creating Boston to Pittsfield east-to-west rail. As of right now, it's unclear who will operate this future route, but east-to-west rail has been in discussion for many years now, and back when the CSX Pan Am merger talks were still happening, CSX promised to allow Amtrak to operate more trains on their lines in Massachusetts. This, in addition to the aforementioned Berkshire Flyer, are examples of Amtrak taking advantage of this opportunity. Finally, on the 28th, California High-Speed Rail received environmental clearance for their line between Merced and San Jose, meaning that construction can begin as soon as funding is acquired. And now it's May. Summer's coming quickly, and that means I'll be able to put a lot more time into making videos for you all, and of course, High Speed Rail Week 2 should be out very soon. As of right now, I have just 2 more videos to make, and hopefully I can have them done before the end of the month, so hopefully if all goes well, you should see those videos soon.